Hello, hello, hello. Good night, everyone. How is everybody doing? This is Cindy Placid once again on Poetry and Perspective with Placid. Guys, listen, I have such an amazing show for you today. But before, as I always do before I start the show, okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. But before I do that, I say bonsoir, Saint Lucie. Good night, everybody from St. Lucia, from all over the world who is watching Poetry and Perspective with Placid. I am your hostess, Cindy Placid. And let me tell you, sit back, relax, because you're gonna be informed today about this important topic. But before I do, let me tell you about myself. Okay, I am from the beautiful Caribbean island of Saint Lucia in the Caribbean. I um I am a mother of four, including one deceased. My son Kyle, the eldest one, my youngest Noah, my daughter-in-law Aaliyah, and of course my deceased daughter Isabel. Okay, so these are my four children. I love them, whether alive or dead. I love them. Okay, so I my second son. Sorry, why am I stammering? I'm so silly. My second son was born with autism. So I am first of all a poet, an author. I have written two books. Okay, so my first book, let me see if I can find it for you. Yes, my first book is on the screen right here. It's called When Life Stood in Silence. And this book was born from grief, from loss, from depression, anxieties. In that book, I explained my innermost feelings about loss, and I poured my heart out in my poetry. So but it also has a little bit of everything. Okay, so this is my first book. Now my second book, which is called A Mighty Calm, it is almost a kind of rising from the grief, from the loss, to find my self-confidence, find myself, and to be empowered, and to be empower others, and to inspire and to motivate others to be the best that they can be despite the circumstances. So this is my second book. Okay, so like I was saying, I am an advocate. I advocate for autism because my youngest son was born with autism. So I advocate for autism, to bring awareness to autism. Because of my own struggles with mental illness, I advocate for a mental illness as well. And my daughter, Isabel, who is deceased, was born with a rare form of dwarfism called thanatophoric dysplasia. So because of that, I advocate for thanatophoric dysplasia, dwarfism on the whole, guys. So you can this is my story here, but before I go on, you can find my books on rise www.rise2prosperity.com, and I'm going to put it on here, www.rise-2-prosperity.com, and you can find it on amazon.com, Barnes and Noble, anywhere that Amazon or Barnes and Noble is sold in the world, you can find my book. Okay, so you can order it, enjoy yourself. So here at Poetry and Perspective with Placide, I strive to bring poetry to life, to the readers, to the listeners, and the viewers. The show serves to promote, encourage, empower, and empire. Sorry, it's not empire. I'm thinking about my own empire. Okay, the show serves to encourage and empower, motivate, and inspire our viewers with our work experience, both of myself and of that of my guests, especially the words found in my poetry and the books and whatever we bring out to you on Poetry and Perspective with Placide. Okay, now whether you're an author, a poet, an entrepreneur, you try to bring awareness to some cause. That is what Poetry and Perspective and Placid is there for, to give you a platform to help you reach, my viewers and other people, so that we can bring people's stories and their work to life. Okay, so I am here to help people reach a wider audience. All I ask in return is that you share my lives. Okay, and invite people on the show. And I'm always looking for people to come on the show, so you guys can, if you know someone who wants to tell their story, Bring them on. Cindy Placid is here waiting, okay? Now, I do not discuss politics and religion here on the show, although I respect everybody's views about politics and religion, but I don't entertain it because I believe these things bring confusion, and I want the show to stay fun, exciting, and everything. So, that's here where we are. So, I want to give a few shout outs to, my people from all over my country, and one in particular, my family who just we just lost a loved one in death again, and it has been really tough for us. So keep us in your prayers, and reach out if you know any of us, give us some encouragement. My uncle died. I didn't talk about it in the previous shows because I was a little bit distraught, but I'm doing better now, so I'm here now. I will sort of have to find my glasses because I can't see anything. Okay. So I'm gonna have some more announcement at the end of the show, so you guys stick around. But tonight, guys, we have an amazing, amazing guest for you. And let me see if I can find my slide. Because it is you see my thing is in purple because it is Alzheimer's Awareness Month. And yesterday was Alzheimer's Awareness Day. I decided, since I'm bringing awareness to a few things, I had a friend of mine who was suffered with that disease, and I think, why not? Why not bring more awareness to it on my platform so that the people that view can get a chance to know exactly what it is if you didn't know. So I I reach out to the Alzheimer's Association, and I have this beautiful, beautiful lady, okay, on here with me. We've never met each other except on the telephone, and we're gonna see each other today. But I'm gonna bring her on. So let me see. Let me add this to this screen. This is another one. Yes, there she is, Miss Cloud Conrad. So now I'm gonna bring the live person to you, okay? Live person. Hello, darling.
Hello, how are you, Cindy?
It is a pleasure to have you on here in Poetry and Perspective with Placid. I am telling you, I don't know which one of us was more excited, you or me. Now I'm going to tell you, I'm a fun, goofy, outgoing personality, and
I can go with that. Me
yes,
too.
and I'm going like, after all the things that I have been through in my lifetime, I don't need to be sad. I need to be happy. Okay, so I will laugh at my own jokes. I don't care. I'm just down to earth. Okay, so feel free, feel free. Okay, and feel at home. Okay.
All right,
So,
one request. One request. Please laugh at my
all
jokes
right.
too.
Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about Miss McLeod. I'm gonna put my glasses on, people. Y'all know I can't see nothing. So let me put my glasses on. Okay. So let me see here. I'm going to read from my phone because my other thing is giving me problems. So, Miss Cloud, is it Mrs. or Miss?
Miss,
Okay, Miss. Okay. Miss Cloud Conrad. And by the way, I love your name. I love it.
thank you. Thank
So,
you.
Miss Cloud is a dementia caregiver, trainer, and mentor. Her company name New Street Compass provides dementia caregivers the knowledge, skill, and emotional support needed to navigate their journey confidently and competently. As a certified independent caregiver trainer, I know Tipa shows, okay, I'm not going to read that. Is Tipa Slow Positive Approach to Care, certified life coach, International Coach Federation, virtual dementia certified trainer, Second Dreams Win. I hope I'm saying it right. Alzheimer's Association community educator, support group facilitator, policy advocate, and national CNS volunteer advisory council member, and two-time family dementia caregiver. Conrad is an authority on solving the unique challenges that dementia caregiving presents. She is a sought after public speaker and educational program designer developer. Her caregiver manual, the Dementia Field Guide, is a powerful resource for dementia caregivers and can be purchased on Amazon. Oh, yay! Yay! So listen, I said, oh my gosh, how does she do it all? Yes, so my darling, so thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you so much. So I have a few questions. I'm sorry, I didn't send you the question, but I added a few questions, a few more questions to the question. So just whatever you can answer, just tell me I'll pass. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay, guys. So let's start. So, aside from the very impressive educational accomplishments, please tell the viewers about you, Cloud Conrad. Where you from, your hobbies, etc. The good food that you like. I love to talk about food, okay?
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, in the U.S. And after college, I relocated to Atlanta, Georgia. And I've been in the Atlanta area for all of my adult life, really, and been in Georgia 2/3 of my life. I was counting up the other day. I spent a full career, 30 years in advertising and marketing, first working inside ad agencies and then working on the client side, helping to coordinate with advertising agencies. And what brought me to this work, my father, I was a primary caregiver for my father, and I remember feeling, that was very hands-on care. I remember feeling so much fear, frustration, and failure when I was working with him as a dementia caregiver that I vowed that one day I would help other dementia caregivers navigate their journey. And fast forward, after my father passed, I took a little time and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And, I just needed a break because the stress of holding down a full time job and caring for someone living with dementia is very daunting, very
Yeah.
emotionally and physically challenging. And then I remembered my vow. And so I decided to learn as much as I could about dementia so that I could help other dementia caregivers. I mean, I knew a lot from my own experience, but if you know anything about dementia, you know that every individual's case of dementia is as unique as their pinky print. Every case of dementia is different, and I knew that if I was going to help others, then I would need to have more knowledge and experience than simply my own working with my own family members, and that's what brought me to establish New Street Compass and to become a dementia caregiver trainer. In my off time, I try to make music. Very much enjoy live music. I can't really mimic it at home, but I do try. I love my Beagles. And I love Mexican food. I got to eat Mexican food for the first time today in months and was very excited to be able to do that. And I also make jewelry. I have a silversmithing studio that I work in when I have a little time, which is not very often.
Oh, cool. Cool. I love that. I love Mexican food too. I don't know too much about it, but I have a lot of, Spanish friends, but I love Mexican Spanish food on the whole. So maybe one of these days we can jump by this Mexican place and have something to eat.
Yes, yes, yes. Let's share some Mexican food.
Yes. So tell us, okay, let's get to the business of Alzheimer's. Tell us what is the difference between Alzheimer's disease and dementia?
Oh, thank you. This is such an important question to sort of establish a foundation for this conversation. Dementia is the broad category. Oops, I have my name tag on still from the talk I just did at an assisted living facility.
Mhm.
Dementia is the broad category. I mean, I've heard anywhere from dozens of different forms of dementia to
Mhm.
hundreds of different forms of dementia. I don't know what the right number is, but dementia is sort of the umbrella. If you talk to the
Yes.
Alzheimer's Association, they will call it the umbrella, the big category. Just as cancer is a big category. Alzheimer's is a form of dementia, just
Mhm.
as breast cancer is a form of
Okay.
cancer. So Alzheimer's is a subset of dementia. Other forms of dementia that are more common might be vascular dementia, dementia with Lewy bodies. Frontal temporal dementia are probably the most common forms of dementia in addition to Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is responsible for probably 3 out of every 4 cases of dementia. It's the most common. And that's why many people believe that Alzheimer's and dementia are synonymous, are the
Mhm.
same thing, but they're not actually. Alzheimer's is a form of dementia.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. I did not. I just. I think because I hear people say dementia and then they mention Alzheimer's, so I'm gonna. What's the difference? I did the same. Okay, so
There,
that's good.
well, they are. You can have, if you have Alzheimer's, you have dementia. But if you have dementia, you don't necessarily have Alzheimer's. Um,
Okay.
but
Wow.
it is the most common form. I had someone ask me the other day, my spouse has dementia. I mean, my spouse has Alzheimer's. When will they move on to have dementia? And I had to say, well, they already have dementia. Alzheimer's is just a type of dementia. It's the one we hear about most, but
Okay.
it's just one type.
Wow. Okay. So wow. That's under that explains a lot to me. I'm
Good.
sure the viewers are gonna find that too. That explains a lot. So what are the early signs that someone is getting the Alzheimer's disease?
This is a great question. I love this one, Cindy. And it's such an important one, too. It's very difficult in the earliest stages of dementia or Alzheimer's to know, is it cognitive impairment? Is it something I should really worry about? Or is it normal aging? Because the signs of normal aging also look like the earliest signs of dementia. So the earliest signs of, and I'll give you a lens in a minute for how you distinguish the two. The
Mm-hmm.
earliest signs of dementia would be word loss, not being able to come up with someone's name or not being able to find a word that they want to use in order to convey meaning to another.
Mm-hmm.
Another probably the most common sign is short-term memory loss. The person can remember things that happened 3 years ago, but they don't remember necessarily that they have. You just told them you have a dentist appointment at 3 o'clock today. After lunch, we're going to go to the dentist. So
Mm-hmm.
they may ask you again. Seeing repetitive questions is a very common sign of that short-term memory loss. That is what everyone thinks of and rightfully thinks of when we hear about dementia. Oh, that's a memory disease. It is
Oh.
a memory disease. However, after the earliest stages, we'll see, or sometimes during the earliest stages of dementia, we will see other signs and symptoms. But because the memory problem is so common to everyone, then that also becomes synonymous with dementia or Alzheimer's. So word loss, short-term recall. Sometimes we'll notice that people have a greater degree of difficulty keeping their focus, concentrating, problem solving, making decisions. Those would be some of the earliest signs, I think, of Alzheimer's and dementia. Now, all of those are also signs of normal aging, which is what I was getting to before. We experience our cognitive peak somewhere between probably 25 and 30 years of age, and after that, it's all downhill, sadly, but slowly. So in normal aging, we would see problems with short-term recall. We would see problems with can't find that word, can't come up with that person's name.
Mm-hmm.
We would see signs maybe of it takes longer to do things than it used to because of problems with concentration or problem solving. But how we know that it is normal aging or something more serious is, and these are from the Alzheimer's Association, these are three great lenses. The first is, does the person have the ability to recover? So
Mm-hmm.
have you had a senior moment ever? Come on, admit it. You've had a senior moment sometime when,
Yes. Well, I have
okay.
plenty senior moments.
All right, but so you lose someone's name, like you run into in the grocery store, you know this person, but you can't come up with your name and you're thinking, while you're having this conversation, what is her name? What is her name? What is her name? And you're driving home from the grocery store. Her name is Cindy. Why couldn't I come up with that in the moment? Or you bolt up in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning. Her name is Cindy.
Yes.
Well, you recovered from it. So if the person has the ability to recover from that lapse, if you will, or that senior moment, then it's probably not dementia. If a person is experiencing that senior moment, whatever that is, so often that it's interfering with daily life, then it may be cognitive impairment. It deserves some exploration with a member of the medical community. And then the third one is it different from before or different for that person? It's common it's not a foregone conclusion, but it's very common in dementia that we see that people, for example, ease up on their grooming or their hygiene or the way that they keep their home. Now, if the person was always a slob, their home was never, fastidious, never tidy, then the fact that it's not tidy now is not different from before. It's not different for that person. But if that person was always meticulous in the way they kept their home, and now we come over to visit and there's, clothes on the dining room chair and there's mail everywhere and, there's dishes in the sink and, just general clutter, then that might be indication of something more serious because it's different from before, different for that person. So the three lenses that the Alzheimer's Association offers that I think are so helpful. If the person has the ability to recover, then it's probably senior aging, recover from that lapse. If the person is not experiencing that particular symptom so often that it's interfering with daily life, then it's probably not cognitive impairment. If the person is eliciting behavior that is typical for that person, that's not different from before, then it's probably senior aging. And then the converse, if it's different from before, different for that person, if they don't have the ability to recover from that lapse, or if it's affecting daily life because it's happening so frequently, then it might be sign of some cognitive impairment that should probably be explored further with a member of the medical community.
Wow. At least I know I recover a little bit, so I'm not there.
Oh, you've got it. You're good. Whatever you didn't recall, if you both have at 3 o'clock in the morning, then it means you've recovered.
Yeah, listen, sometimes I'm looking for the knife and I'm going, where is the knife? And I open the refrigerator door and I put the knife in the freezer and I'm looking for the knife everywhere, but I thought I had it in my oh my goodness. But that's some really good information. Sometimes we don't think about things like that. We don't think about it in that way. Nowadays any other thing somebody has is like, oh my gosh, are you getting, I've heard people say before. So it's good to make the differentiation between the two. Okay. It really is.
Yeah, let me, if I may, when I give a talk about what are the normal signs of aging and what are signs of potential cognitive impairment, invariably in the audience, I see people, particularly when I talk about short-term recall and word loss, and I'm explaining, these three things that I just explained to you, to them, and I get to those symptoms and I see them go, oh, phew, I don't have it. I'm okay. I'm in the clear. I see that all the time when I do my presentations live. People's, visible relief that what they're experiencing is in fact normal. I have to talk slower, let my mouth up to my brain.
And so many people are gonna go tonight. Because some of these and as funny as it may seem, but these are some of the things that we really need to take into consideration and we really need to look out for because we don't know. And that brings me to my next question to you. So I know we had a list of questions, but I'm just going through some of them. So does it affect a particular age? I know it's basically when I was reading through some information, it was talking about the elderly, but does it have a particular age group that usually gets dementia? Is it the elderly or is what they're saying true? Is it just the elderly or can it start at any age?
I wouldn't say any age, but we see a lot of it's very disturbing to see cases where the individual with the cognitive impairment is in their 40s, even sometimes, and 50s. Normally, we see dementia show up age 65 or later. The number one risk factor for dementia is age. But if a person is showing signs of dementia before age 65, it may indeed be dementia, and we would call that early onset dementia.
Okay.
And then I mentioned frontotemporal dementia a little bit ago. Alzheimer's and vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, they usually show up age 65 or later. Frontotemporal dementia, interestingly enough, is a little different. And the signs of frontotemporal dementia may show up in an individual's 30s or their 40s or their 50s. And frontotemporal dementia is, unlike Alzheimer's, we see a lot more pronounced symptoms of changes to the frontotemporal region of the brain, where we do our analytical thinking, our higher thinking skills. And so if a person is having some damage to the area of the brain that's in charge of those higher thinking skills, those analytical skills, problem solving skills, making good decisions, and it's happening earlier in their life, in their 40s or 50s, we often mistake that as midlife crisis.
Oh.
Kinds of, so we can see very erratic behavior, very poor choices being made in a person's 40s or 50s, and we think that person's a jerk, or that person's stupid, or that person's, loco. Well, it maybe, but it might also be a sign that frontotemporal dementia is in play.
Wow.
To just finish that with one kind of factoid thought, to put this back on the age perspective and move back to sort of more of a general dementia conversation. In the U.S., I can't speak for the globe, but in the U.S., of all those individuals that are age 65, probably 1 in 20 may have dementia. For all those individuals that are 75 or older, maybe 1 in 10. For all those individuals who are 85 or older, 1 in 3 people have some form of dementia. So we can see, through those little facts, through those statistics, that definitely age is a big influencer on one's likelihood to develop dementia.
Nice. Wow. Okay. So I can breathe a sigh of relief. I'm in my 40s, almost in my 50s. So I can breathe a sigh of relief. So, Miss Cloud, some brain changes are normal as we age, okay? So how do we distinguish normal brain aging? I think you answered that question.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
ability to recover, and
Yeah.
is it affecting daily life, and what was the other one? Different from before, different for that
Yeah.
person. Yeah.
Okay. So there is I go to my next question. There is an ag there's something floating around where it says meet them where they are. When talking about dementia caregiving, what does that mean?
What does that mean? Meet them where they are. I love this question. Thank you so much for this. I was talking with a person in a meeting earlier today, and they were saying, I brought over a friend of mine, to visit me today, and the friend came to the front door, and we walked into the living room to visit, and there was my mother sitting in the living room, and she had her suitcase packed, and she said to my friend, "Oh, hello, I'm waiting for my plane." Well, the woman was in her living room. Our normal reaction as humans would be, "Mom, you're in your living room. We're not at the airport. You're not taking a plane flight today." But meeting the person where they are, instead of correcting mom, we would say realizing that mom has some cognitive impairment, we would say something to join mom, meeting mom where she is. It's not physical joining, but saying, "I understand, and we're on the same page here," effectively. So meeting a person where they are would not be correcting them in that instance, but might be saying, "Oh, where are you flying to?" Or, "Is your flight business or pleasure?" Or, "Do you like a window seat or an aisle seat? Is the plane on time?" That sort of thing, to help them feel validated. We have our own basic needs. We've got needs for safety. We've got physiological needs. We need to be fed. We need to be clothed. We need to be warm. We need to drink water, have sleep, etc. But all humans have more intangible needs that we share. The need to belong, the need to feel valued, the need to have purpose. And when we meet a person living with dementia where they are, we're helping them feel like they have value, they have purpose, and they belong. We're validating them rather than correcting them. And it's a tricky skill to learn. In this conversation earlier, and I think it was an NPR podcast, it might have been on Radio Lab that I heard recently. Anyway, the big idea being, if you know anything about improv comedy, where people don't know the lines, it's a form of theater. People don't know the lines there's no script actually, but
Mhm.
actor one says something crazy and off the wall, and actor two is not supposed to say, "What are you talking about? That makes no sense." Actor two is supposed to say, "Yes, and
They
blah
keep
blah."
it running.
Keep it running, exactly. And so that skill can be so powerful for dementia caregivers to just, mom is ready to take her flight. So we say, yes, and,
Hmm.
are you sitting in business or are you sitting in first class or are you in, anything to keep that conversation going so mom feels normal, like she's a part of the conversation, like she's just like everyone else in the room. So that's an example of meeting someone where they are. A more textbook definition of that, Cindy, would be figuring out where the person's cognitive skill is, where their the abilities they have still retained, and
Hmm.
operating on a level that meets that cognitive skill. So
Hmm.
another example would be maybe the person played bridge for years and years and years. Maybe now their mind won't allow them to keep score, remember the rules, remember how to play the sequence of the game, but maybe they can play a less complicated game. Maybe they can play Old Maid. Maybe they can play Go Fish, or some of the other games that are a little more simple. I don't mean to say that the person with dementia is simple, but if we can modify the activity or the conversation to be something that's on par with what their brain can do still, then we're helping them feel like they belong and are valued, and have purpose.
So what I'm getting from that conversation, you need to have be tactful with your words. Know the right words to say so that they may not feel less of a person than they really are.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And if caregivers can throw off the guardrails, just be willing to be crazy a little bit. So this example, if I may share from the podcast that I was listening to, the the mother was staying with a couple, and the mother was the parent of the wife. Well, her son-in-law, the husband, was the one that the mother interacted with the best, and he actually was an improv comedian. And one day the mother said, "There's monkeys all over the place." Well, there weren't. But instead of the son-in-law saying, "What are you talking about? You're crazy. There's no monkeys here," he said, "Yes, and we have to get the monkeys' pants. The monkeys have to be dressed." And so they had this conversation about where they were going to get the pants, and were they plaid, were they corduroy, and it just the mother, just had such a wonderful afternoon because of the fun and the looseness, the freedom to just be who they were without having to worry about being right or wrong.
Yes, wow. That's amazing. Our words are powerful. And when somebody is going through whatever situation, whatever condition they may be going, whatever disease, our words will either make them or break them, either lift them up or bring them lower than they are.
It's so true. Yes.
Wow, thank you for that. So my next question is, people sometimes say that dementia caregiving is like taking care of a child, or that the person with dementia is behaving like a child. Are there similarities?
This is another great question. There are some similarities, but I also want to touch on the care we have to take with such kind of thinking. There's a doctor by the name of Barry Riceberg who developed a theory with colleagues called the retrogenesis theory. And
Mhm.
basically, to try to sum that all up, he is saying just as a person has intellectual development, cognitive development, beginning from the time that they are born until the time they are, 12 or so years of age. Well, really, our cognitive peak is 25 or 30 years of age. But just as the intellect develops that way, there's a reverse process for a person with dementia where the intellect is taken away. Those aren't his exact words. And the timing of the development, the growth of intellectual ability, and the timing of the loss of intellectual ability in dementia do correlate in terms of the number of years that one spends in the growth mode of intellectual development, and then in the progression from mild cognitive impairment to early stage, and then middle stage and late stage. The timing is correct. However, I kind of cringe when I hear dementia caregivers say, it's just like babysitting a child, or I'm dealing with a child here, or my husband acted out just as a child would. What I think is dangerous about that thinking is that even though some of caregiving does look like caring for a child, if we think about the person living with dementia as a child, we are stripping them of their dignity. A child has never experienced romantic love. A child has never experienced the having responsibility for another individual. A child has never experienced their cognitive peak. A child has never amassed a lifetime of memories and learning and experiences. Even though a person with dementia is losing intellectual ability, we can't take their experiences away from them, nor would we want to, or the memories, or the personhood that they did develop that a child hasn't yet built. So when I hear people talk about those living with dementia as children, I try not to get on a soapbox about it, but I think if we don't think of them as children, then we can operate from a caregiving position where we are making ourselves open to promoting as much dignity for the person as possible. Whereas if we think of them as a child, then we're kind of demeaning them, even if we don't mean to.
That's true. That's true. I really get that because we don't we no nobody wants to feel like they've been stripped of whatever they had, or being demeaned, or you know the word I want to say is not coming, but nobody wants to feel like that. Nobody
Right.
wants to feel like that. So I really get it. Wow.
And it's kind of in our world today, we are more focused than we were in the past about interacting with others so that we promote a sense of dignity, so that we lift up another individual's sense of dignity. Or I hope that we were, if we're not, that's the beginning of world peace. But it is also very important, and it's also very important when we are caregiving for a person living with dementia to remember their personhood and their life meaning, and celebrate and promote their dignity.
Yes. I had a friend of mine, like I was saying it, I had a friend of mine, and she was just sweetest person. And I could not understand it much. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really wanted, when I learned about Alzheimer's and dementia, I really wanted to know more, because I could not understand how one person can go from here to there, you know. But she was in all her disease, she was the sweetest lady. Sweetest lady. And I loved her. And ah, okay, it's not good. Before I get emotional, I don't want to get emotional. Y'all know my viewers. Y'all know me. I'm going to get emotional about a little thing that has to do with death. Yes, so I don't want to go there. But it is really an amazing thing that you're doing, teaching people about dementia and the caregiving, and to mentor people, to help people better understand what the disease is all about, and how we can really care for those who have it. And even the caregivers need care as well.
Oh, yes, they do. They definitely do. Um, Caregiving is for a person living with dementia and this is documented. This is not simply my opinion. It is so much more taxing than other forms of caregiving, than caregiving for any other disease. And one of the reasons is that in dementia, we are working with or supporting a person who is losing their skill in reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
Their behavior is likely going to change because of the brain changes that are happening to all the different cognitive skills that they have. And this is causing not only a great deal of physical stress, because the chores in dementia caregiving, rather the tasks that we do in dementia caregiving, are more arduous than in other forms of caregiving, but it also creates a lot of emotional stress. And because if we have never known a person living with dementia, we cannot relate to the dementia caregiver's journey. Dementia caregivers, in addition to the stress of it, potential depression and the physical toll that it takes on our body, we also feel isolated because we tell our friends, my father's doing this or that or the other. We're not really looking for a solution. We're really just looking for a shoulder. And the person can't relate to it if they haven't experienced dementia themselves. And so we find as dementia caregivers, well, they didn't understand. They said, well, look on the bright side, or, did you try this or that? They don't get it. And so many caregivers give up trying to share their experiences with their friend and looking for consolation through their friends, and that the isolation that can create, just emotional isolation, if not logistical isolation, can be very trying for caregivers. So it's very important, and it's so hard for dementia caregivers to really carve out the time for themselves that they need for rest and respite and restorative activity, whatever that looks like. But it's very important that caregivers make the time for self-care, lest they get sick and won't be able to, provide the care that they intended to provide.
I totally can relate to this because in the beginning of the show, I did say that I was an autism mom and I'm a single mom. And if people are not, people maybe from the outside looking in, they may say, but if it were me, I would do it that way, or I would do it this way. But to be in the situation yourself is different.
Mhm.
And there are times I am totally burnt out, like really totally burnt out. And it's hard when you don't take care of yourself, then you are running yourself down into the ground as the caregiver. And if
Yeah.
you cannot take care of that person, then if you're going to take care of yourself, then you cannot take care of that person to the fullest extent that you would want to.
So true, Cindy. Yes. Yes. Yes, and dementia caregivers feel that it's selfish to go to a matinee or to see a therapist or to go to the gym. And actually, the reverse is true. If you don't take care of yourself, it doesn't necessarily make you selfish. But if you're not taking care of yourself, then you can't give in the way that you want to. You can't give as fully.
These are the feelings that I experience every time. It's just like I feel so guilty. So my friend started to tell me, Cindy, you have got to take care of yourself. You got to do something for yourself. So for a long, long time, I wasn't doing my nails. You see my nails? I started doing my nails.
Self
This
care.
is what I do for myself to make myself feel good. Even if it's just taking a walk. Now I don't feel guilty about going to the gym. I don't feel guilty about taking. It's just it comes with the territory, as if we feel like we're gonna miss out on something that is happening to our loved one. Like if we're not there, then what's gonna happen? So all of these feelings, and sometimes even if we're giving the best care, but at the toll it takes on us, the toll it takes on a caregiver. And when you go to bed, you are so tired. Sometimes these are the time you shed the tears,
Yeah.
that lonely space. And then when you wake up in the morning, you have to be strong all over again. So I totally understand.
It's one of the biggest challenges and a very important thing, to solve. I mean, um, if I may, in
Yes.
the dementia caregiving world, it's so beneficial for the primary caregivers to enlist their friends. A lot of people really do want to help. They say, let me know what you need, and they really mean it. And we, as the caregivers, think, I don't know, I'm afraid to ask. It's too much to ask, this or that. It's not too much to ask. Give people an easy and clear cut um, thing that they can do to contribute, whether it's, I would love for you to make one casserole every week that I can put in the freezer. I'll know, that on any night when I don't know what's in the refrigerator, I can always draw on your casserole. Or I would love for you to come over 1 hour a week and read to my husband, or a little thing but a specific thing. And if you add up enough of those, then you will feel more supported, and the stress of caregiving will be alleviated to some degree. And the people really love having a specific thing. And I don't know, it's a human thing. It's not just dementia caregivers. We're reticent to ask for that help,
Yes.
but people really do want to provide it.
Yes. And sometimes we don't want to ask, but people really, some people are just waiting for you to say, do you I need help. Some people are just waiting for us to say that. I know for myself personally, it is so hard, to just say, I need help.
I need help.
But I'm
And
getting better.
well, we as humans, we typically don't make a behavioral change until we're backed into a corner, and the until not making a change becomes so painful that we end up making the change. So I guess I would ask all the dementia caregivers who are watching this, rip the band-aid off, even though it's scary. Just ask a friend for one simple thing, simple and specific thing that they can do, and see that it's actually not as scary as you think, and see that the friend really is glad to know a specific thing they can do to help. And just experiment with that, even if it does feel uncomfortable at first.
Yes, more hands make the work lighter.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
definitely. So as with some other diseases, is it safe to say that a significant number of cases of dementia that never get diagnosed for whatever reason, you know what are the advantages of getting that dementia diagnosis?
There are, I wish I knew how many, really the true number for how many cases of dementia there were around the world, and then certainly in the US. I don't know what percentage are actually diagnosed. There are reasons that, and maybe good reasons, why it's not useful to pursue a dementia diagnosis, but there, and those would be very specific to a family, that would be a family decision to make. But there are advantages for many people in having that diagnosis. There are some FDA, at least, I'm sorry, this is very US centric, but I can really only speak to my own experience. So in the US, there are several FDA, Federal Food and Drug Administration, excuse me, approved drugs. These drugs don't reverse dementia, they don't prevent dementia, but they do help alleviate symptoms for a period of time. And the people who experience benefit from these drugs, well, their caregivers for those who experience benefit from these drugs say that it's completely worth it, and that their life has changed as a result of these drugs. One would not be able to have access to those drugs, would not be able to get a prescription for those drugs without a diagnosis. Another key reason why, or key benefit of a diagnosis, is that if an individual wanted to participate in clinical trials to help us get to a place where we can have preventatives, treatments, and cures, you wouldn't be able to participate in a clinical trial without a diagnosis. And then the last thing is more along the lines of family planning. The earlier we have identified that a person has dementia, the better able, this is a degenerative disease. People aren't going to improve from dementia, they will slowly get worse. So the earlier on we can have conversations with the individual with cognitive impairment about, what do you want your care to look like? Who in the family or who outside the family do you want to have involved on your care team? What do you want at the end stages of life? Do you want to be on a feeding tube? Do you want respiratory assistance? Are there any people that you don't want around you anymore now that you have dementia? In the end stages of life, what would you like your vigil to look like? What would you like a legacy project about the meaning of your life to look like? All of those kinds of decisions are going to be easier for the person with dementia to make the earlier they are in their progression, when they have as much cognitive ability available as possible. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean a diagnosis for that last point that I was making about family planning, but the acceptance that the person indeed does have cognitive impairment. Accepting that as early as possible is difficult, but it's advantageous for the person living with dementia and the loved ones around them.
Wow. Margaret Houston said, very interesting. Marie Dante said, amazing topic. I'm just telling you, I usually like to read on what the guests are saying, and the viewers. And Mia Logan said, great topic, and other people say good night and everything. So, people are finding this, at least very informative. I'm happy that you guys are getting some good information from this discussion. I am so, again, we are with Cloud Conrad. She is a caregiver, trainer, and mentor for dementia. So that's what we're talking about today, and it's Alzheimer's Awareness Month. So that's why we have I have my purple on, okay? So yes, sweetheart, thank you so much for that. Um, now I I asked that question. I had that question down, but I think you answered it. But I'm still gonna ask it. Is there a cure for Alzheimer's? And if not, what are some of the steps or research being undertaken to find a cure for it?
Mm. There is no cure yet. The most important step is these clinical trials that I mentioned a little bit ago. Unfortunately, there is a certain element of trial and error involved in bringing every drug to market, whether it's a preventative, a treatment, or a cure. So clinical trials is the primary way that we are getting closer and closer. Now, I mentioned FDA-approved drugs, Food and Drug Administration in the U.S. approved drugs. The ones that have been on the market for several years are aimed really at certain symptoms. They don't cure, they don't reverse, but they help alleviate some symptoms for a period of time. In the US last year, the FDA fast-tracked a new drug, aducanumab, that's a mouthful, marketed as Aduhelm, Aduhelm. Aduhelm is controversial because the different results from the preliminary trials had contradicting results. But the FDA fast-tracked it anyway. 20% of the individuals that were in that clinical trial did experience a slowing in their progression of Alzheimer's or dementia. Only 20%. It's a very expensive drug too, to the tune of about $1,000 a week. It's very expensive. And for my own taste, that's a little too much money for a 20%, success rate. But what I will say is, this is the first drug that has had any success, at least that I'm aware of, the first drug that's had any success actually addressing the pathologies of dementia. So it's a step closer. I'm not promoting this drug. I don't think it's necessarily the right choice for people to make right now. But what I do love about it is what it's saying about how our proximity to preventatives, treatments, and cures, we're getting closer and closer. And it's the clinical trials that will get us there.
Yes. When you get a chance, send the name to me so that I could really look it up.
Okay.
Okay, I can put it on there.
I will. It's a big word. It's hard. If you've seen it in print, it's a little easier to swallow, but it's a weird word to pronounce, and it's something that's foreign.
I'm going like, she said what? I was trying to get it to right. I'm going whatever. I'm going to get to it. Okay, so how quickly does the disease progress after diagnosis?
This is also a good one. So this goes back to my pinky print. It's very hard to predict. On average, from diagnosis to end of life, we are probably looking at 5 to 8 years. However, I know people whose mother, whose husband, whose sister lingered in any one of the stages, mild cognitive impairment, early stage, middle stage, late stage, for decades, and which is very sad, particularly if they linger in end stage dementia for decades. But I do know some people that have had their person wheelchair bound for 5 to 10 years. But normally from diagnosis on, it's probably 5 to 8 years. Remembering back to what I was talking about with retrogenesis theory, Barry Reisberg, MD, his modicum of intellectual development is about 12 years. And when we think about diagnosis, well, the person's already been showing symptoms there's never a diagnosis before, symptoms are shown. We don't know anything's wrong. But typically from the time a person first shows symptoms, for Alzheimer's disease until end of life is about 12 years. It can vary from individual to individual, and I have to stress that. No one is a stat. A statistic is an average. An average isn't real. It's a hypothetical kind of number. No one is really the stat here, but that's ordinarily what we would see in terms of lifespan after diagnosis.
That's a short space of time.
Very short space of time.
So it is a really, I wouldn't say it's aggressive like cancer, but it's kind of like aggressive.
I would say it's aggressive when we think about all of the different cognitive skills that are being affected and the ruthless manner in which dementia persists. I would say it's aggressive. Yeah. Yeah. And I have heard of cases of people being diagnosed and not even living 5 years. Uncommon, but possible.
So I'm gonna ask a silly question. It may be silly. So would eating the right foods help you? Would eating the right foods help you with not even getting there, or is it just something that just is unpredictable? It can come on.
Not a silly question at all. Whereas 10, 20 years ago, the medical community was putting more stock in genetic factors, influencing likelihood to develop dementia. Now the medical community is putting more and more stock in lifestyle choices. So absolutely eating a proper diet, getting regular exercise. What is a proper diet? Let me back up for a minute. We typically say a heart healthy diet is a brain healthy diet. The heart pumps blood and delivers oxygen to the brain. So if the heart is healthy, then the brain is more likely to be healthy as well because it's getting the blood and the oxygen and the other nutrients that it needs. Exercise is very important for stimulating circulation. There are other physical benefits to exercise that translate to benefits for the brain. Social interaction, not being isolated. The amount of cognitive skill that we are using talking to each other, just having this conversation is profound. Just having conversations with other people is stimulating brain activity in a very positive way. Cutting down on, or maybe not cutting down, but keeping alcohol consumption to a minimum or to moderate rate, stopping smoking and drinking a lot of water, getting good sleep, regular sleep every night can indeed lower one's likelihood of developing dementia or potentially slow the progression.
Hmm. I need to get more sleep.
Yeah, it is not
I don't
impulsive.
get enough sleep at all. So I find myself forgetting. I'm gonna, oh my gosh, am I have I joke around with myself a lot. I'm gonna, oh my god, am I getting the onset of Alzheimer's because I'm forgetting so many things. So people exercise, um, healthy. Did you say healthy? You didn't say healthy. You said a proper, feeding
Proper
yourself.
diet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
proper diet. Wow. So
And
if
social
somebody,
interaction. A lot of
yes,
people don't really put stock in that because it's not a diet kind of thing. But
yes.
social interaction is indeed a lifestyle, choice and a technique to help lower one's chances.
Wow. I gotta get on my game.
I know that's something that all of us can be doing, better than we are in terms of lowering our chances. And this is the thing, if there is family history, if there is a genetic influence in terms of one's likelihood, we can't change those things. But we do have agency over how we treat our bodies. We do,
Yes.
we can change that. Or let me not assume we're doing the wrong things. Or continue to make the good choices that we're making. Bring it
Yes.
that way.
Life is all about the choices that we make.
Yes.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to family members okay, let me back up. As a caregiver, trainer, and mentor, what advice would you give to family members who get the diagnosis and are caring for someone with Alzheimer's and dementia? Okay.
Mm. Thank you for this. So someone that has gotten a diagnosis, this, I'm going to make an assumption from there that the news is new and that the person is relatively early on in their progression of dementia. My advice would be to do as many things as you normally do for as long as you can. Maybe that is going to involve some modification of activity to meet the person where they are and help them operate at a skill level appropriate to the skills that they have retained. Keep things familiar. A person living with dementia is really relying on what is familiar. As a person is losing the ability to process visual data, auditory data, tactile data in the same way that they once did, what is familiar to them will bring comfort. And so, to the extent that we can keep up with the same routine, keep the same people in our lives, not redecorate the whole home. And if we get to a point where we have to move that person to assisted living, to bring, and it's harder and harder. It's a big mistake, I think. Assisted living facilities advertise fully furnished. You don't need to bring anything. I think that's a mistake. People need their dresser. They need their artwork. They need the throw rug that was at the foot of their bed. What is to keep things familiar for the
Yeah, they
person.
need something that they could recognize.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. So
Wow.
those would be the two things.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I
Um,
think that would make sense to them.
and yeah, and not assume, oh, we can't take that trip to Africa or to see the Grand Canyon or what have you. Yeah, you probably can. Maybe with some modifications, maybe not traveling in the way that you once did, but don't assume that you can't do those, chase those bucket list kind of dreams.
That's the time to live the best life ever.
Yes,
Let's go.
yes, seize the moment.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
Wow. Thank you so much. This has been so much amazing information, and I'm so thankful that you it was short notice. But you work with me and we were able to get that information to people. I am so thankful for this information, and I know the viewers are a lot of the viewers are going to be thankful for that information that you gave and taking the time out to be with us here on Poetry and Perspective with Placid. Now, I have one more question. I'm always doing something silly, okay? So, your caregiver manual, the Dementia Field Guide. Tell us a little about it and where we can find it.
Thank you. And I wish I had a copy right here so I could show you the cover of it. The Dementia Field Guide can be found on Amazon. It was probably, if you search dementia manuals, it's probably not going to show up at the top because it's a relatively new listing. And so I haven't sold thousands and thousands of copies yet. But it's
Mm-hmm.
called the Dementia Field Guide. And if you go to Amazon and search for Dementia Field Guide, it should pop up with my name. The Dementia Field Guide is a spiral bound book. It's about 250 pages. It is really aimed at the practical, logistical side of caregiving. I don't cover advanced care directives. I don't cover insurance and estate planning and that kind of thing. It's really for dementia caregivers to help them learn how to interact with and engage with the person living with dementia in order to promote and protect dignity and to help to ensure that the person's quality of life will be as high as possible. There's learning in the journal. There are field assignments in the journal, for people to actually try on, apply the advice that I share. There are places for journaling and other, writing exercises as well. So the person can really have the experience of applying the knowledge that is in the book.
Okay. So I'm going to put it on the screen, people. The name of the book is The Dementia Field Guide by Cloud Conrad, found on Amazon.com. I'm writing it, okay? I'm typing.
Thank you. I know, terrible marketing. I've got a box of them out in my car, but I can't run get those without losing your viewers.
I will put, if you send it to me, I'll put it after. I can always go back and edit it and put it back on the show, on
Thank you,
the
Cynthia.
live.
Thank you so much. And it has been such a pleasure getting to know you, and working with you has been such a privilege. And I'm really so grateful for this time with you.
Thank you so much. The pleasure was all mine. I'm going like, we have never met, but when I spoke to you, it was like I had already known you for years.
I feel the same way. Let's do this again in a couple months.
Yes. So I put it on the screen, the Dementia Field Guide by Cloud Conrad. Okay. And I forgot to put the other one. Found on Amazon.com.
Found on Amazon.com, the getting place.
But I didn't put my glasses on so I can't see what I'm typing. But thank you so much. The pleasure was all mine. And I'm hoping that we can meet each other soon personally. I'm in the Marietta area. I don't know where you are in Georgia.
I'm in the Blender area, but we should get together somewhere in the middle.
Yes, we should get together and get those that Mexican food.
Yes, let's get Mexican.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Have an awesome, awesome night. And before I go on, I have a few announcements, but I'm going to say this, guys. If you have someone who's living with dementia, okay, whether you're in the Georgia area, whether wherever you are, get that book, the Dementia Field Guide, if you're a caregiver. And I'm hoping that you're going to share this video, share this live to as many people, because there's so many people out there who need this kind of information and they don't have it.
Yes.
They don't know where to find it. Some people just don't want to be bothered with the internet. So just go ahead and share that video to somebody. Some people would rather watch a video than to read. Uh-huh. So go ahead and do that. But before we go on, I would like to say thank you again, Dr. Dr. Should I call you doctor? No. You I'm messing if you like to mess with people. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Cloud Conrad, for being here with us. I'm sure that my guests are really appreciative of you taking the time out to be here with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cindy.
And to everyone who viewed our show and who's always here, to all my viewers, I love you all. I love that you take the time out to be here to give me, thank you to give me the support. I am here to support and to give information and to educate and to lift people up, to empower others. And that's the best way I know how right now. So I'm doing it until I can do something better. You're stuck with me. Okay. Yeah. So I would want to say I always end my show. No matter how difficult the situation is, okay, no matter what circumstances, no matter where you are going through, you all know my slogan. There are no tap outs. You never give up, but you keep fighting, okay? And you may fail many, many times before you can succeed at something, but never, ever let failure be your finality. This is Cindy Placid with the beautiful, beautiful Cloud Conrad, okay? And she is a caregiver, trainer, and mentor for dementia. I hope you will get her book. And as always, have an amazing, amazing night. Keep rising. Good night, y'all.
Peace be with
Good
you. Thank you,
night.
Cindy. Good
You're
night.
welcome. Good night.